Take us away, Callum.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the first time that we're doing this. Today,
That's right.
we are doing Kevin.
We're not doing me, because we're
We're
doing
doing
CastPod Conservation. Yep,
what
it's
an
spelled
entrance.
right.
Conservatu.
I believe it is conservat equal sign 2.
That's our that's
Good
our
start.
secret username. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're trying out this new format for a type of video um, that I'm looking forward to. I think it can
Yep.
be a lot of fun, and there will definitely be some more serious topics, more debatable topics, and I think a lot of good conversations will
Yeah.
probably come out of it. So I'm excited.
And there still will be the terrible jokes and sidebars, of course,
Oh, obviously,
in the true CastPod fashion. But
yeah,
it's one of those topics that we've talked about multiple times of doing on CastPod, and I believe we have a couple of times.
yeah, we've touched
I
on it.
generally forget, but it's
Hmm.
like it's such a. I guess there's so much we could talk about that we're just like, let's let's give it its own channel, or I guess its own show.
Yeah, it definitely deserves its own thing.
Yeah, its own entity.
That's why we're doing it today.
Yep. Today, Saturday, when this comes out,
Thought it was coming out Friday.
is it?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know
You
either.
upload them. I don't know.
All
Well,
right.
whatever day this is, today is the
Today.
day that it comes out.
Okay, Friday, because it's after midnight.
Oh, well, I meant like based on
Oh,
whenever the person's here. All right. Well, you know what? Whatever.
it'll
It's
be
out.
up the second we remember.
This video will be uploaded, and that's all you need to know.
It's all you do know, because.
That's well, you make a good point. So yeah, what is CastPod conservation? Kevin, would you like to tell us?
So, Callum and I both like animals,
This is true.
making sure that they stay alive,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in between, from
You know,
laws and regulations to what to do to help.
yeah, basically anything on the topic of conservation. Mostly going to be dealing with animal-related stuff because that's just our area of
Yeah.
expertise. Um,
But
but I
things
don't
like
know, it might touch on other stuff.
environmental and I
Yeah,
guess
the whole One
maybe
Health
One
triangle.
Health triangle. Callum, what is One Health for those of you playing along at home?
Oh God, is this a test? Is our advisor listening?
Yes,
Oh
I personally
God,
texted him.
he's secretly in the Discord call listening. Um, so One Health is this idea that there is kind of this interconnected web of the health, not to sound redundant, of kind of the world. And so there's three parts of it. Like I said, it's a triangle. So there's the health of wildlife, there's the health of the environment, and then there's the health of humans. And the idea is that all of those are connected, and that, if one starts to kind of drop off, all of the others will be affected as well,
Mhm. And
right?
yeah, because it's one of those things of it's like if you think about it a little bit, it's just like no, these things aren't really connected. Like sure,
Mm,
animals live in the environment, but people do their own thing. But then when you think in depthly about it, it's like, oh no, these things are a lot more connected than I would expect.
that's a thing that I think could definitely be its own topic, is the idea of humans and their thoughts on how separated they are, as if
From
I'm not one of them, um,
well,
from the environment. I mean,
Callum is a
jury's still
lizard
out.
person.
We'll talk about that on CastPod Conspiracy. But
Conspiracy theories about ourselves. Like
those will be good. Um, but yeah, just the idea that people are kind of separate from nature, like
Yeah.
humans aren't animals, or humans have made their own environment that like the wild doesn't really affect them. Um, that could definitely be its own topic.
Hmm.
But yeah, just that sort of thing, like getting people to realize like if it's that whole big pyramid, if this thing at the bottom is affected, then it's going to have an effect on things on the top. So even if you don't think, you know, things are related, they are. And I think a good example of that would be the current pandemic, right?
Yep.
Because you have this whole situation where you have this pandemic. What most people know is there is this disease that's going around, it's killing a lot of people, so obviously affecting the health of people. But how did it come to be? Well, that's because humans were interacting with wildlife in a negative way. It was from, I guess you could call it bushmeat, but
Yeah.
some dude ate a bat, and coronavirus happened to be a zoonotic disease, meaning it can be transferred between animals and people. So this bat had the disease, this guy ate it, and obviously it's probably not just this one dude's
Hmm.
fault. I'm sure you could trace that disease to quite a few different people, but um, so there you go. It's the health of animals, and that then impacted the health of people and also the health of the environment. Because if you think, if people are tearing up the lands around there, like all the forested areas, and they're kind of ruining the health of the ecosystem there, so that everything, all the wildlife, is like pushed into these pockets of reservations that then people are hunting from, then that, all of it links together. That's the best example I can think of right now.
That's a very good example.
Thank you.
Actually, that's a very good summary of just like from the people aspect, kind of for like a short run. People can people affect environments and animals a lot,
Hmm.
and we know it. And a lot of people don't actually acknowledge it that much.
That's
And
true.
then, but the inverse is there's a surprising amount of environmental and animal factors that affect people, like Callum said, with coronavirus being zoonotic
Yeah,
and
zoonotic
somebody getting it
diseases.
from bat. And then there's
Hmm.
also environment. The best in college, I called it the environment fighting back. But things like California wildfires, hurricane season, earthquakes, it's like
Yeah, it's
these
a good
are
point.
all events that have been happening for thousands and millions of years. And yes, it's been happening this entire time and still is to this day. So that's why the environment's fighting back, because
Hmm.
they'll it
Yeah,
literally takes lives.
it does. Yeah. So it's a really important
Topic.
thing, and I will probably talk about One Health a
Yeah.
bit more because I had a chance to talk to a guy recently, um, who does a lot of work with One Health, but he focuses more on the environmental aspect of it rather than like the animals or the people really. So it was just kind
Hmm.
of cool to talk to him about like what he does and
What he
stuff.
does and get like an inside detail on it.
Yeah, because I mean, for Kevin and I, the kind of focus we have is on the animals. Um, but like I said, we learn a little bit about everything because they're all connected. So you can't
Hmm.
just like focus on the one and leave all the others out. You
Yeah.
still have to keep
It's
them in mind.
it's like the recycling triangle kind of
Hmm.
where it's like they're all connecting and pointing at the other.
Yeah. But I think so. I actually just had a good idea of something we could talk about for this first episode, so we don't just keep talking about random topics here and there.
Yeah.
Is we could kind of say what our backgrounds are.
Yeah. I was thinking backgrounds too.
Hmm. So like education, inspiration, yada yada yada.
Perspiration,
Also
evaporation,
condensation. Yep, all that stuff.
concentration.
Um, what in tarnation?
What in titration? Anyway, going back to
Yeah,
concentration.
yeah. So, would you like to go first with it?
So, sure.
Sure.
So, I have a. What is our degree? Bachelor's of
Bachelor's
Science.
of
Boy,
Science.
I did not earn this degree. I got pity passed. Bachelor of Science degree in wildlife conservation, as does
Hmm.
Callum.
Correct.
And a lot of my professional background has been more of a captivity setting. So, at, I used to work at a place where I was in charge of animal care for over 150 exotic and rehomed pets,
Yeah.
ranging from insect colonies to guinea pigs to ferrets to tortoises, bearded dragons, Burmese pythons. I was in charge of every single protocol and diet and all that fun stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have since left, of course, because my boss is a butthole. Listen to D4 in Theory with me if you
So,
want to hear that old tale. And now I currently work at a pet store, which is a surprising conservation role, whether you think about it or not. I mean, a little bit conservation based, but also a lot of it's like animal health based because you get a lot of people that just don't. They're getting a lizard for the purpose of saying, "Hey, I have a lizard."
yeah.
They're getting like a certain type of like guinea pig just to say, "I have a guinea pig," and it's like this is kind of where a lot of the education aspect comes in because
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately I'm not running full classes on these things, but I'm just like what like typically, especially when it comes to reptiles and amphibians and invertebrates and anything weird, that's me department.
Right.
But it's like you'll get these kids that are just like, I want a bearded dragon. That's easy to take care of, and I'm like, are we sure about this? Because here are all the steps that you need. It's like step one, you need to be older than 18. So
I was like picturing John Cena appearing in
yeah,
the background every time somebody says that. It's like, are you sure about
that'd be terrifyingly amazing.
that?
Um,
You should hire him.
oh, I would like, but it's also like setting people up to be prepared for taking care of these pets, as well as I get a lot of questions related to the native wildlife. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of fox questions. I get a lot of outdoor cat questions, which that's going to be its own episode
Oh, for
alone.
sure.
And it's like, what things to do. And by the way, just going to say this now, if you're planning to keep chickens, you got to make it fox proof from the start. That's
There's a
I,
story behind that one.
there's a story behind it, and it's just oh god, that it was just
Those
unfortunate for
poor
that guy.
chickens. Oh man.
But it's like there's, despite seeming like not a very conservation based role,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely got secretly more aspects of it if you really like, especially like with my niche in the pet store of I'm the like I said, I'm the reptiles, amphibians, invertebrates, and any other weird questions guy.
Yeah.
That all gets directed. That's call over the walkies for Kevin to show up, and we just write it from there.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty honestly any job that deals with animals, there's gonna be aspects of it that are going to be conservation related, I think,
Hmm.
on some level.
Yeah, and like a good portion of animal that we could get are also invasive species, and that's its own episode.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I love talking about invasive species.
Oh,
That is a big topic of interest for me. But yeah, anything else about like what really got you into kind
uh,
of what you're doing?
so
And by the way, you could also hear all of this again from D4 in Theories
yeah,
podcast because we both did that and talked about the same things. But whatever, we're doing it now.
so my I would say my biggest inspiration is Steve Irwin, which
Same.
one of like top I would say four inspiring factors for a lot of people our age conservation
Hmm.
based. I would say the top four are Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, the Crap Brothers, and then somewhat Jack Hanna. He's a little
Hmm.
bit on the older side of us for being inspiration, but it was just insanely cool of what he like how he went about things, and that would be a lovely role to fill one day.
Oh yeah.
But also, I'm broke, so I work at a pet store to fund my
Also, shout out
animals.
to David Attenborough.
David Attenborough, yeah, I can't believe I forgot about him.
Ah, that's fair. He's old.
Yeah, he's like Betty White. He's gonna live like 90 million years.
True. Him, Betty White, and the Queen are going to be hanging out for for the next couple thousand years.
Yeah, but so there's a lot of definitely inspiring factors, and also I've got quite a few pets myself.
Mm-hmm.
I currently have, God, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 non-crested gecko pets,
Jeez.
about 15 crested geckos, and
Nice.
then a couple of colonies. I've got Vietnamese walking sticks, multiple types of isopods. I've got cats. I've got frogs. I've got snakes. I've got lizards. I've got a tortoise. I've got a little bit of everything when it comes to captive pets.
You really do.
So I've got a nice variety and a range of setups as well. I've got
Mm-hmm.
some tanks that are just bare minimum. I've got some tanks that are fully bioactive or close to being fully bioactive once the plants do better or like set their roots. But yeah,
Nice.
that is background all about Kevin.
The story of Kevin.
Chapter 1, the day I was born.
I
Neither
was gonna, I was gonna do that,
I
Joe.
actually quote I actually quoted this at work today. I said like chapter 1, the day I was born. My parents didn't show up to my own birth.
What a classic joke.
Comedy right there.
Both of my parents failed to show up.
Just amazing. So Cal,
Yes.
what are you, what are you good at? What are your qualifications?
Um, nothing.
Oh, is
Uh,
it truly nothing?
well, I mean, if you insist. So it's very similar to uh your upbringing, really. I mean, initially, I would say because people ask like, the classic question when you're growing up is, what do you want to be when you grow up? So when I was in preschool, we did one of these things where it said, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then like draw a picture of yourself of what you want to be. And I said paleontologist, um, which, shout out to me for spelling paleontologist when I was 4. Well, um,
I couldn't even spell my own name at That
What are you talking
24.
about?
That's our
We
guy.
all have our different strengths, you know?
Hmm.
But yeah, I wanted to be a paleontologist because I thought dinosaurs were dope. Um, so that's all I ever like read about and wanted to learn about. But I realized around that same age, actually, I was like, oh wait, all the dinosaurs are dead. So like, although they're cool, I will
I
only
can't do
ever be
anything.
looking at rocks. I will never like see a dinosaur unless time travel is figured out. So still hoping for that one.
Yes.
Um, but I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, what's kind of like a dinosaur? And then I said birds because I knew even back then that dinosaurs turned into birds.
I
Just
don't
kidding,
know.
that wasn't figured out yet. So I went to reptiles.
What a plot story.
I know, right? Um, so I was like, yeah, I mean, reptile. I always liked animals in general. It was just I had a preference for dinosaurs. But then I was like, I mean, I want to work with living things. Reptiles are cool because they're all scaly and cool looking. So let's go with that. Um, so I also was watching Zaboomafoo and Jeff
Oh yeah.
Corwin and Steve Irwin, especially back then, because I thought what they did was awesome. All the work that they did and all the cool adventures they got to go on. And I was like, I want to do
Hmm.
that. So I just kind of decided then, when I was a child, I was like, this is the thing that I want to do, and I wanted to stick with it forever. And I'm sure you've heard the same. I'll get people telling me like, "Wow, I can't believe you said that you wanted to do this back in like elementary school, and here
And you're
you
doing
are,
it.
like doing it." I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it's what I wanted to do, so obviously I'm gonna go do it."
Hmm.
Um,
And they're like, Callum, you're too young to know what a podcast is.
I was like, "Too bad. YouTube's gonna be invented in 2005, and I'm gonna rock it." Um, so when I was 8 years old, I went to a nature center with my Boy Scout troop, and as we were leaving, I noticed that there was a lady who was holding a snake, and I was like, "Oh, dope, a snake." So I asked her if I could like check it out, and she was like, "Yeah, sure." Hung out with it for a bit, and then before I left, she was like, "If you wanted like to come here and take care of the snakes and stuff, feel free, hit me up, and I'll let you know when we're working." And I was like, yeah. So then from then on, for the next 10 years, every weekend I was going to that nature center and working with those animals, doing general animal care and also some educational stuff like little birthday parties and whatever. Um, and yeah, so I did that until I was about to go to college, where I went to the same college as Kevin, did the
Hmm.
same degree, did all that together.
Yep.
And then while doing that, while working at this nature center, I also was talking to the naturalist there a lot because he was really cool because he knew everything about everything. Like if there was anything nature related, he knew about it, and he would take me on these surveys uh, where it would literally just be going out and looking for like a certain type of animal, mostly reptiles and amphibians, of course.
Hmm.
So I did that all that time as well, and then in college, I worked with Kevin at the place that he worked at,
Yep.
but for me, it was just an internship. He turned it into a full job.
Hmm.
I also did an internship at a bug museum for a while, for a summer, and that place sucked, but it had some good times in there as well. And then now I am doing a master's in herpetology. I mean, there's no degree in herpetology, but like the work I'm doing is herpetology
Biology.
related. So I just call it that. And I had a job over the summer working with turtles under the same guy who was the naturalist at the first nature center.
I was going to say, under a bridge.
Yeah, so making connections and keeping them. Um, And yeah, so I've just, I've been pretty much working my whole life to work with animals and study them in school and trying to become a professional animal person. And that's our backgrounds, I guess.
What kind of pets do you have, Callum?
Oh, yeah, the pets. So, right now, I have a leopard gecko, I have a ball python, I have two box turtles, an ornate and a three toed, and I have a blue tongue skink. And then there's my sister's dog, Daisy.
Daisy, arguably
And
friend group
mhm,
favorite, because she shows up when
uh,
we're playing video games.
she does like to show up when we're playing video games. She likes to hang out with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've had a few other pets over the years as well,
Oh yeah,
all kind of reptile related. I had some
yeah,
cockroaches at one point too. That was cool.
yeah.
Madagascar hissing cockroaches.
I've had axolotls, red-footed tortoises,
Hmm.
other snakes. Yeah,
But yeah, so that's what we got going on. So
that's
if we
us.
ever say anything stupid, um, we kind of know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would say we know more than the average person, but less than really smart people.
Yes, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, Although I have presented at professional um,
Conferences,
conferences
that is
before,
true.
so I'm at least kind of a professional before you yell at me in the comments. I don't think anyone will unless they're just trolling, unless it's me on a
It's,
separate account,
it's gonna
probably.
be you on your own personal account
I'll be
calling
like,
yourself out.
wrong, wrong. Yeah, I do like to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then any special interests of yours when it comes to conservation? Like, what is your either, I guess, future goals for conservation or like what areas specifically in conservation is like
The
best for you or
best
like
for
most
me.
interesting to you?
So for me, I I personally prefer a lot more of the um, captivity education side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of like kind of going to a little bit more of a Steve Irwin esque route of it's like you can I can stand here in front of a PowerPoint and say all these things about let's talk about frogs. Like I could do an entire PowerPoint about frogs
Mm-hmm.
and I can get you so far. But then I can in person show you it's like the certain aspects of the frogs, this kind of habitat they live in. This is natural. This is close to natural as we can get with it. And I feel like that definitely is a little bit more suited to towards me. Also, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
talker and a schmoozer, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's for the route I'm looking for. That's definitely the way I would lean more towards. Is just because of how much like I'm definitely more competent on a personal, like a person to person level, as opposed to like person to organization level, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
And then, I mean, goals is there's not a lot of steep goals for like short term. Specifically is step
Mm-hmm.
one is get all the acts back in place. Get
Yeah,
the bring the Endangered Species Act back. Bring back all that stuff because that's its
please.
own entity. And I feel like a very strong aspect of like future generations, besides that like hands-on initial interaction, is kind of just like like finding the aspects of like, see, these things are possible. Like, oh, what island is there's the island off, I think, the west coast or North Carolina or something, where it's like certain
Yeah.
type of foxes live there as well as like bald eagles, but then the DDT in the water supply shifted the entire environment, so they had to bring things back, and they were able to, because it was such a small range and very niche, they were able to do a full turnaround, which it's not possible for every scenario, but there's literal proof it's possible.
Hmm.
But that's, we can get more into that in the future
Yeah,
of the
that's true.
bring it around town policy.
Bring it around town.
And then also, I plan on mooching off of Callum's coattails for a good portion of time. A solid 30 years seems about right.
As long as I have them, feel free.
Nice. Yeah, I should say 30 more years. I'm already 10 years in.
Hey, nice. I mean, survival of the fittest, right?
Yep. And with my track record of being me, I'm not going to survive.
Nah, you'll be fine.
I I was throwing out light bulbs the other day, and one shattered, and I didn't realize it, and one just shattered, and I just go, "Oh, look, I cut my arm."
Oh my god. Okay, maybe not.
And then there are some in my shirt, and my solution of finding where the shards were in my shirt is to tap my shirt to see where it would hurt, and then
God.
trace it back. So when I say I'm not going to survive with the fittest, I mean it.
Yeah, no, you make a solid point.
So, Callum, what's your future like? Successful?
Yeah,
Positive?
we'll see. Um,
Past the age of 25?
God, I hope so. I only just got to 24, so um, so short-term goals right now, going for a PhD, and that kind of leads into the long-term goals because my long-term goals are very vague and kind of like, I don't know, sound like an anime protagonist or something, where I'm like, the my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody, but also my
My man. The CastPod way.
my actual main goal is to make a lasting difference, which I like keeping vague.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that is really what I want, is I want to be able to do something that will,
Be
you know,
remembered.
yeah, it will be remembered, and not specifically for the like, I want to be famous and I want people to know my name. I want something to be done that's going to last, that will, have a positive effect on the world. So like, I don't have to be Charles Darwin, David Attenborough, or Steve Irwin, where like their names are going to be
Yeah.
remembered forever.
You could be like a different
Um,
type of person whose names are remembered forever. John Wilkes
yeah.
Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wayne
Yeah.
Gracie.
As long as I'm remembered, who cares what it was for? Um, no, as long as I do something that it's like, even if it's not like super big in the public,
It's
like,
still impactful.
yes, make an impact is the goal. So the reason that I'm going for a PhD is because I think that would be the easiest route to do that. Because I've always been not afraid, but aware of the fact that a lot of what matters in the world is like how people view you,
Yeah.
and like how you kind of come off to people, and like what are your credentials, like are you um kind of like unprepared, not unprepared, but like
You can call me out.
if you're like not qualified for certain things, like if people think you are not qualified to talk about a certain subject or to be in charge of something, I wouldn't want to be in that position because like you see, if people are talking about something, they're talking about um,
You
something that needs to
wanna
be changed. Take Greta Thunberg, or however you pronounce it, for example. She
is
has
making
made a
an
huge
impact.
impact,
Oh yeah.
and she is, a huge voice for active. I almost said Activision, the company. She's
Activision.
a huge voice for Call of Duty. Um, she's a
Call of Duty
huge
Cold War.
activist.
Pre-order now. Get the Greta Thunberg skin.
Activision, please sponsor me. I play your games a lot. Um, she's a big activist for conservation, for young people, for the environment, yada yada yada. But
Mm-hmm.
you see people criticize her because she's a child. Um, Granted, she's like, I don't know, 16 now, so she's almost legally an adult. Um, but a lot of people are like, I mean, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just a kid.
Yeah.
She doesn't have 40 years of experience or whatever. And it's like, I don't want to be put in a position where if I'm trying to do something, people are going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not qualified for this. So I'm like, if I come out into the world, and I have a PhD, and I have years of experience
Mm-hmm.
working with animals, working in the field, writing papers, whatever, then it's like
Yeah.
nobody can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, or like I don't have any worth in what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'll be in a position where I'll most likely make the biggest difference. And I don't know what specifically that field is going to be in still. I don't know if I'm going to be doing like research for the rest of my life and I'll just write a ton of papers that maybe people will base future decisions on. I don't know if I'm going to go into government work and like try to create policies for,
Mm-hmm.
similar things like the Endangered Species Act or whatever. I don't know if I'm just gonna be a famous YouTuber and just have a big following from the public, and people are gonna be like, I like animals because I watched that one CastPod about animals. Who knows?
Well,
I
jokes
don't.
on them. There's gonna be multiple.
Yeah. Um. So it's gonna be whatever I just end up doing, but I'm just gonna keep working until I get to that point where I can actually make that kind of impact.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's very much a goal that a lot of people have. Is just I want to make an impact,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm at least me as a person with my big beard and crazy hair and my insane rants about moss at 2 in the morning. Um, where it's like I'm definitely one of those people that's like and it happens on a pretty often basis of people at the pet store because they'll think it's like, oh, this guy's working here, he's not gonna have anything, and I'll get someone's like, what do you know about like isopods? I'm trying to start a colony, and I just go, well, boy, howdy, what kinds do you have? Because I have a bunch myself, and it's just get ready for this tangent, and it's just a very simple and easy, like, it's a very misleading role I have
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, sure, in theory, I shouldn't at working at a pet store with a bunch of high schoolers. I shouldn't know as much as I do, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like shy as a surprise. Let me tell you everything you need to know under the sun.
Yeah. I that's the thing is, like I said, you can make an impact in all
Yeah.
kinds of places. So it doesn't have to be like world changing. Like you're still making a difference talking to people wherever you are.
Hmm. And I feel like that's also like that's a very impactful point that goes into other issues that I have about myself, but
Mm-hmm.
that's unrelated to this series. But like I do have people that specifically will come to the store looking for me for advice or
Mm-hmm.
just to talk. Like a lot of it's people that like I've been working on building my own tanks and paludariums and vivariums. So like I'm having like I've like over this last summer I've been working on a tank for my mossy tree frogs where I just got some of the final plants in now. I'm still looking for one more plant to put in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just got to find it somewhere. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so I have quite a background on this because I'm doing it myself.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that's like, I'm trying to build my bearded dragon a tank. I'm building a paludarium for an old folks home. Actually, that's a lady I talk to pretty frequently,
Oh,
and I've gotten one of my armadillo lizard from one of the people at the pet store as well.
nice.
I've given people walking sticks. It's like a very weird integral role. My favorite is someone comes up to me and the first thing they said to me was, "I know you like the weird stuff, so you're not gonna judge me for this question." And I'm just like, I'm in this 100% no matter what you say after this. And she was wondering how to keep hornworms as pets and not feeders. That
Interesting.
was a fun little tidbit.
What do they turn into? What do they look like?
They become like moths.
Yeah, but it's like a cool looking moth.
Hmm. She's also the lady that offered me a tegu. So
Hornworm moth.
I
Oh,
get,
that's pretty cool.
yeah,
I googled it.
I get a lot of offers from reptile, like to take in some reptiles and amphibians, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I do have to say no to a lot of them.
Yeah,
But
I
there
have a
are,
couple
I would say,
rescues.
there are a couple that I would like. I have a handful of rescues, like pets.
2 out of 5 for me are rescues.
Oh God, I've got one colony is technically a rescue, and then one, two, three, four, five other rescues,
Mm-hmm.
and then some are just the rest. A lot of the rest are straight up just acquired from. A lot of it's breeders,
Mm-hmm.
but also I've pets from pet stores. I've
Because
bought
you know what you
some.
shouldn't do when you can't take care of a pet anymore?
Get one or
Release it
just
into the
release it
wild.
into the wild. That's actually a thing that happened in our hometown actually recently.
Did it?
Did or like right next to it, hometown adjacent. But
Uh,
they found there's two different situations.
okay.
So like closer to our hometown, and I'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you the more finer details of it afterwards.
Right.
Somebody near a gas station, and they're currently at the local SPCA, um, dumped 3 ball pythons
Oh,
because
I
it's
did see
a
that.
it's a common practice because we're in Pennsylvania, so it gets cold in the winter
Mm-hmm.
and at night. And a common practice of I don't want to keep this reptile anymore is I'm gonna freeze it out.
Yep.
And while it being a humane route to kill a reptile for I mean it's I was gonna say lack of better words, but that's legitimately what you're doing.
That's what you're doing.
You also it's like it doesn't always have the best success rate if you're not 100% sure that it'll do the job.
Yeah. If
And
you're
then
not putting it in a freezer and you're just like saying, oh, well, it's winter time. Let's put it outside and hope for the best.
yeah, welcome to Pennsylvania where we'll get 85-degree weeks in December. Yeah. And
But
then
also, probably shouldn't be your first choice anyways,
no.
is euthanization.
Yeah. You should always try and rehome first.
Yeah.
And then another weird local thing is there was a house kind of up by me where they found, like, the neighbors around the house had complaints about white rats, like albino rats, move like
Hmm.
in their house and stuff. Which, for those of you who don't know, albino rats, albeit like rare in the wild and very common in captivity,
Hmm.
they typically don't last to adulthood if they're wild native. Plus, the albino genes are tend to be very recessive.
Hmm.
So, if you're finding multiple white rats, that isn't a situation of, wow, look at this population. This is, these got out.
Yeah.
And one of the houses had, I think, like 300 of them living in it,
Jeez.
and living, breeding, all that stuff. And they also had, I think the last I heard was 19 accounted for pythons.
Wow.
So the keyword there is accounted for. They're not
Mm.
100% sure if any, because they're convinced some had to have gotten out, like
Right.
without fail. And who knows how many there actually are. And that's kind of like, that's, there's like a happy medium game. So, like, when you have a lot of pets, regardless, there's a very fine line between having a lot of pets and taking care of them and hoarding.
Hmm. Yes.
And that goes into quality life standards. So I have in total, not including the individuals of the colonies of my insects, around 25 to 30 pets. However, pretty much everybody has their own tank. Everybody's cared for daily. Everybody has food, water, and proper lighting as necessary. Minus the cats. They kind of have roam around the apartment. So they don't have their own cage.
The
They
apartment is their cage.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. And they don't go outside ever, except for Beans does go outside on her harness. We're working on
Oh,
harness training her.
adorable.
Yeah. But it's like, yes, I have a lot of pets, and but no, I'm not overwhelmed to the point where I'm sending my neighbors rats unintentionally. So,
Yeah, that's not an easy thing to. That's not an easy point to get to, I think.
yeah, that's, and part of that does have to deal with um my background of running um a an entire facility that had 150 different species, and also it does have its benefits of working at the pet store where I have very easy access to supplies and suppliers and knowing where we get things, as well as I get first dibs. It's such a perk. Is It actually happened on Tuesday. I was actually food shopping after voting, and I needed crickets. So I walked in and found out there wasn't any yet, and I was like, "Cool, let me just see when I work next," because I don't know what time I work at all. And
Hmm.
then I ended up, I looked out the door and I saw the UPS guy, and because I work there and he knows who I am, because I tell him I love him if we're in desperate need of insects. Um, Make sure you if someone's good to you and supplies you with things that you need, tell them you love them. Definitely brings you, it brings you a little bit closer, but it shows how much you appreciate them.
Oh,
And
wholesome.
I I was like clearly not looking like I was ready to work, and I was just like, "Thank you very much for crickets for me." And then I opened them up, got myself some crickets, and left. But it's when
Mm.
like I don't know where I'm going with words anymore.
Not fun. I was just taking the time to eat a Kit Kat.
Nice. Kit Kats, arguably the best candy.
They're pretty darn good.
I feel like nobody gets mad at a Kit Kat, but also that's a topic for another podcast.
that's,
Just gonna add that to
that's
the.
another episode.
I'm gonna add that to the just the normal cast pod list. Just Kit Kats.
Kit Kats. Give me a break, am I right?
Oh, all right. So kind of, we're getting to the point where we should be winding down. So
Okay.
kind of gonna give a little bit more of a behind the scenes style overview of where we're going with CastPod conservation.
Sounds
So
good to me.
we're planning on having CastPod conservation come out. I'm gonna say Fridays now. I know I said Saturdays earlier, but I'm gonna say Fridays,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna make it at 2 p.m. because it's almost 2 a.m. and I'll give it 12 hours to upload. Um, plenty of time.
Yeah, that's fine.
So Fridays 2 p.m. CastPod conservation will be coming out, and it'll be a range of topics for me and Callum to discuss. Um, Conservation based, as well as we have been in talks of releasing like live videos as well,
Mm-hmm.
either going over our setups, us redoing setups, just talking about certain aspects of our animals in general.
Mm-hmm.
There, so it's not going to be just straight audio podcast the entire time. And
Yeah.
the show is going to be every other Friday. And
Mm-hmm.
on the opposite Fridays, Callum, what do we have coming on the opposite Fridays? So a week from today. Oh my God! I just realized on the screen it says new CastPod conservations every other Saturday. I should change that because I changed it in Word. Fro Friday. Everybody gets to see me misspell Friday at first. So, Callum, what do we have on our other
Yes.
Fridays?
Yeah, so anyways, I was doing the X-Files theme.
Are we gonna go
So,
over the alphabet or X-Men?
yep, that's right. We're gonna do CastPod XXX, where we just talk about different topics that start with the letter X. That's right. Just things that start with X, not anything inappropriate.
CastPod
Get your minds all together.
xylophones.
We're doing CastPod Conspiracy, where we will be talking about conspiracies.
Conspiracies.
Because it's just cool.
Yeah,
Conspiracies are fun and interesting, and there's literally no end to them. You could
yeah.
talk about them forever, and we will.
We had way too much fun with the first the. It's gonna be the only true episode of like of regular CastPod based off of conspiracy theories,
Sure.
and we felt like we couldn't like we instantly started talking about another like
Mm-hmm.
second it happened. So this way we will be giving it its own show where we can actually like deep dive and we don't have to worry about time crunches for other conspiracy theories.
Exactly. Because like I said in the episode, have always loved conspiracy theories. I love watching all kinds of stuff and reading stuff about all the crazy things that go on in the world. There's a negative side to conspiracy theories as well, but I kind of just like them for the fun of them. Um, and I think we will have a lot of interesting things to talk about that. So Look forward to that on the opposite Fridays.
Yep. And what is going to be the first episode about next week, Callum?
It's going to be about the moon.
Yes! I'm a big fan of the Great Moon Hoax since we originally talked about it.
It's amazing.
And,
God, I want to go to the moon now.
but that's a story you'll have to wait for next week.
I just want to see the bad people.
The bad people. I'm looking at the picture on the Discord right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Unicorns and bad people.
So next week at this time slot, it'll be CastPod Conspiracy with where we talk about the Great Moon Hoax and just general moon theories.
The moon.
And then in 2 weeks from today, we will be talking about some other conservation aspects.
That's right. If anybody has any suggestions,
Mm-hmm.
please feel free to leave them in the
Yep.
comments. Although we have obviously referenced quite a few things in this episode, and we've got plenty more in the background.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's why
But
we
if
know that
there's,
this series is going to go for a while.
yeah, if there's anything you want us to talk about, mention it in the comments. Hit us up at CastPod Tweeter on Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll be able to break it into an episode. We don't tend to pre-record too far in the future, so it's it could very quickly come up.
Yeah.
All right, finish it off, Callum.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. This episode was kind of weird, just an intro to stuff. We did touch on a few things here and there. Hope you all learned something as well. And if you would like to hear more, like Kevin said, just tune in each Friday. And don't forget to check out our regular show on Tuesdays,
Mm-hmm.
where we talk
Tuesdays
about
at 10.
literally anything.
It's kind of it's the Reddit front page mixed with just a garbage disposal of just topics.
And that's why you're the head of advertising. Thank you, everybody. I hope to speak to you again soon.
See you Tuesday.
Bye.